In the dead of winter, as temperatures plunged to a bone-cracking -48 degrees Celsius, a desperate mother dog appeared at a man's doorstep, with 3 freezing puppies at her side. But what she did next, no one could believe it. Stay with us, this story will shock you. In the remote edges of northern Canada, winter wasn't just cold, it was brutal. The kind of cold that cracked the air and turned every breath into mist. At -48 degrees Celsius, the world outside stood frozen in silence, blanketed in endless snow, untouched and unforgiving. Winds howled like ghosts through the trees, rattling the shutters of a modest cabin nestled deep in the wilderness. Inside, an older man named Henry sat by a crackling wood stove, sipping coffee and flipping through an old, worn-out book. He lived alone by choice. After losing his wife years ago, solitude became his quiet companion. Out here, days blended into nights, and the silence was almost sacred. But that day, something felt different. An unusual heaviness hung in the air, as if the storm brewing outside wasn't just weather, it was a warning. Henry looked toward the frosted window, unaware his life was about to change forever. Just as Henry reached for another log to toss into the fire, a faint sound broke the silence. Scratch, scratch, thump. He paused, brow furrowed. At first, he thought it might be tree branches tapping against the cabin wall, common during storms. But then it came again, louder. Scratch, whine, thump. It wasn't the wind. He set down the log and walked slowly to the door. The noise stopped. Cautiously, he cracked it open, expecting maybe a fox or a stray coyote. But nothing could have prepared him for what he saw standing there, half buried in snow, trembling, eyes locked on his. There, on his snow-covered porch, stood a German shepherd, soaked, shivering, and gaunt. Her fur was stiff with frost, her breath shallow, but her eyes burned with urgency. At her paws, nestled in a tight bundle, were 3 tiny puppies. They were barely moving, their little bodies pressed against her for warmth. Henry's heart caught in his throat. The mother looked up at him, not with fear, but with desperate hope. It wasn't a random encounter. She had come here on purpose. He stepped outside, boots crunching through the snow. The cold bit into his skin instantly, but all he could think about were the fragile lives before him. The mother whimpered softly, her tail wagging weakly. The puppies stirred, letting out faint squeaks. Henry knelt, stunned. In all his years out here, he had never seen anything like it. Why had she come to him? And how far had she traveled? Henry hesitated, his eyes flicking from the puppies to the exhausted mother. He hadn't owned a dog in years. His pantry was nearly empty, and he wasn't prepared for this, especially not in a deadly cold snap. But the pups were shivering uncontrollably now, and the mother dog looked like she might collapse at any moment. "All right," he murmured, more to himself than to them. He scooped up the fragile puppies, cradling them against his chest. The mother didn't resist. In fact, she followed him instantly, her legs trembling with each step. Inside, warmth awaited, and maybe, just maybe, a second chance. Inside the cabin, Henry quickly laid towels near the fire, gently placing the pups down and wrapping them tight. Their tiny bodies twitched from the cold, but they were breathing, barely. The mother curled around them immediately, her body shielding them from the cold that still clung to their fur. Henry grabbed an old pot, warming up some water and mixing in leftover broth. He didn't have dog food, but the mother lapped it up gratefully. She refused to rest. Her eyes stayed locked on her puppies, occasionally glancing at Henry as if to say, "Watch them. Don't let anything happen." The hours crawled. One of the puppies stopped moving, and Henry's chest tightened, but a soft rub and a blanket. Shock revived it. That night, sleep didn't come. Not for Henry, not for the mother. As wind howled outside like a warning, inside, 6 lives clung to warmth and to one another. When morning finally broke, a pale gray light filtered through the frosted windows. Henry, bleary-eyed from a sleepless night, checked the pups. All 3 were alive, tucked beneath their mother's warm body. Relief washed over him, until he heard it again, a low whine, scratching at the door. The mother dog had risen and was now pacing, staring at the door with urgency. At first, Henry thought she needed to relieve herself. He opened the door slowly, bracing against the cold. She darted out immediately, stopping just long enough to glance back at him. Then she ran. "No, wait," Henry shouted, slipping on his coat and boots. He followed her into the snowy woods, heart pounding. She led him across frozen paths and past bare trees, her steps frantic. The cold stung his face, the wind slicing like knives. Then she stopped. Ahead, half buried in snow, was a shallow pit made from leaves and twigs. Henry stepped closer, and his heart dropped. Inside were two more puppies, barely alive, their bodies curled tightly together. She had saved the strongest three first and come back for the rest. Henry knelt, stunned. This mother wasn't just smart. She was nothing short of extraordinary. Henry stared at the tiny, barely breathing bodies nestled in the frozen nest. His hands trembled as he reached for them, wrapping them inside his jacket one by one. The cold was unbearable now, but he didn't care. Beside him, the mother dog whimpered softly, nudging one of the pups with her nose. She hadn't given up on them, not for a second. She had made the impossible choice. Bring the strongest first, ensure they survived, and then risk her life to save the others. Henry realized this wasn't a coincidence. She had come to his door on purpose. Somehow, she knew where to go. Maybe she had seen him before. Maybe fate had led her there. Either way, her actions spoke volumes. Intelligence, sacrifice, pure, unwavering love. Cradling the final pup, Henry looked at her with awe. "You're a hero," he whispered, and for the first time, her tail wagged gently in the snow. Henry wrapped the two fragile pups in his scarf and tucked them close to his chest. The cold bit through his coat, but he didn't slow down. The mother dog trotted beside him, occasionally glancing up as if checking that he still had them. Snow whipped around them, the wind howling louder with every step. The smallest pup stopped moving. Henry's heart clenched, and he picked up his pace, stumbling through drifts. Back at the cabin, he burst through the door, kicking it shut. Behind him, gently, he laid the pups by the fire. This was a fight they had to win. Hours passed in a blur of warm towels, tiny feedings, and constant checking. Henry didn't rest. He sat beside the fire, whispering encouragement to the pups and keeping watch over the mother dog, who never left their side. Slowly, color returned to the puppies' noses. Their breathing steadied. They were fighting and winning. As the cabin filled with soft whimpers and the crackle of the fire, something shifted in Henry. For years, his home had been filled with silence and grief. Now it pulsed with life. He began giving them names, small, simple ones. The tiniest pup, the one who nearly didn't make it, he named Hope. The mother he called Grace. Grace had saved her family, and without meaning to, she had saved Henry, too. That night, as snow continued to fall outside, 6 dogs slept peacefully, and for the first time in years, so did the man who had once known only loneliness. As the days passed and the pups grew stronger, Henry couldn't stop wondering where Grace had come from. She was clearly no ordinary stray, too well-trained, too trusting. He made a few calls to local shelters and vet clinics, describing her and the pups. Then came the answer. A family had moved away weeks ago and, heartbreakingly, had left their pregnant dog behind in the snow. She had survived on her own, hunted, hidden, and protected her newborns through the worst of winter. Henry's chest tightened. She wasn't just brave. She had been abandoned and still chose to trust again. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.